I don't know what that was. Squeak, squeak. So even though I do spend time in the pine and oak forest, the dry forest, and the scrub forest, and I seek out spots, lowlands where I can find swamps and spungs in those areas, I much more prefer eastern woodlands that are old growth, and I prefer mountain forests. I like the changes in terrain. I like the rich diversity of plant and wildlife that you find in old growth forests. And I highly recommend anytime you go into any kind of forest, along with some survival gear, I highly recommend taking a field guide of some sort so that you can search for and identify different species of both plants and wildlife. This is an old growth eastern woodland forest. Very tall trees, 150 foot tall or more. Large girth trunks. Very heavy canopy. It's a cool forest. Poplar, maple, hickory, basswood, cottonwoods, sycamores. And the soil here is not a sandy soil, it's more of a clay soil. You can see it's a very thick, heavy soil, retains moisture well, and the water here runs clear on it. As always, I'm searching for signs of wildlife as I make my way through the forest here. This is a good area to search because it's right near water. It's on a low hillside that's easy to travel on, and the ground is clay, and it's very exposed ground because the water coming down the hillside washes the leaves away, and that gives some exposed soil, so there's an opportunity to find tracks here. And in particular, I'm looking for bear prints. You probably won't find scat signs or anything like that because the scat's washed away by the heavy rains. But I do want to search for prints. Don't know if there's any bear in this area yet. They have moved in to a nearby area recently. And in fact, even a little further, there's been a recent sighting of a mother and cubs. So that's what I'm out doing today, looking for whatever wildlife I could find and just enjoying my day. It's a beautiful day. Not too hot, it's low humidity, and it's got a slight breeze to it. And this is a very cool, moist type of forest. There are some dry areas on the high ground, but it's an area that I'm really thoroughly enjoying as I search for wildlife. Here's a nice heavy buckrub right here. I'm on an obvious game trail, heavily traveled, alongside this little creek here. And here's a nice big print. Doesn't matter where in the world you go, it seems like you're going to find these type of balloons somewhere. I've been in the deepest, thickest woods and found them. In fact, I found one that still had a tag onto it with a name and address that was located 300 miles from where I found it. And for you survivalists, if you find these, hang on to them in an emergency because that's going to help contain and carry water. See, the ground's covered with deadfalls all around here. Large trees with big branches falling down. But out over here, you have this one area about 100 yards in diameter where there's very little litter on the ground. So this would probably be the safest place I've seen so far to hang out for a while and not worry about branches coming down on my head. Okay, you can see it took me a couple minutes, but I was able to gather up a small pile of acorns, and I pulled the caps off so that it'd take up less room in my pack. But that's what's so important about these old growth forests, is that they do provide a rich supply of acorns. And acorns are full of fat, carbohydrates, and protein which is going to enable animals such as bear and deer to fatten up before the winter so that they can survive those long days with little food. And if you crack open an acorn and taste it as it is, you see the meat inside, it's very bitter, especially in the black and red oaks, a bitter tasting acorn. Doesn't bother the animals, they do fine with it, but it does affect the taste of their meat. Yes, what an animal eats affects the taste of its meat. Now for our consumption, we would have to leach out the tannins. You could do that with cool water over a long period of time, like putting it in a sack and allowing it to sit in a stream of flowing cool water. That would leach out the tannins. But also the other way is to shell them and drop them in boiling water. You can't bring it to a boil, it's going to lock in the tannins. What you do is you drop it into boiling water, take it out after a few minutes, bring another pot of water to boil, and drop them in again. And that's a way of leaching out the tannins. Now I tasted this one, very bitter. I would not eat it without taking the tannins out because it has astringent properties. It's going to not only have a mild toxic effect, perhaps make me feel uneasy and sick, but it also would tighten up my bowels. Now the video doesn't do justice for showing how big things are when you scan the distance, but when you get right up close to them, I think it kind of helps. The entire top of this tree came off. Must be a 90-foot section that came off the top of that tree. See that branch split this tree right in two. Now here's an awesome example of old growth forest. Down by this creek we have numerous plant and tree species. We have a very old tree. We have an example of an old tree dying, splitting in half and falling down. We have next generation growth here, young beech tree, and then an even younger one where the canopy has opened up, taking root here, taking up this space, and in the distance the big old, very tall trees in a well-established old growth forest. It's old and dying trees like this that provide den sites for raccoon and opossum and other things, crevices for bats to get into. Very important to biodiversity is to have these old growth forests. It's another beautiful beech tree. Old growth forests have what we call pits and mounds. What happens is a tree like this falls over and it creates a mound of dirt from the root ball and a pit next to it. And the tree and the roots will all decay and disappear over time, and you'll be left with a mound of dirt and a pit. And that's what the pit and mounds come from. Well, this is a nice find. Underneath the honeysuckle and the poison ivy and all is a shagbark hickory. Looking at the leaves coming off this tree, you would say, what kind of tree is this? But this is actually a huge oak tree. The leaves coming off the trunk are actually from this vine, which goes all the way to the top of the tree and disguises the oak tree. Now all the way out into the canopy I can see the leaves to this oak. So don't be fooled by the leaves. Looks like deer aren't the only ones using this crossing spot here. And deer going up out that way, out that way, out that way. Going up this hill. This is the largest birch tree I've seen out here. The sweet or black birch. Easy to identify by the bark being a dark color. It goes way up there. It's a good sized tree. Looks like game trail right up here, going up this hill. Go ahead and climb up. Got some tunnel action going on here. There's another tunnel up here. Ooh, it's a big one. Wow, look at the size of this. Somebody's got a little cave going here. Can't see very far into it because it curves off to the side. Lots of trails through here. This whole hillside is covered with trails. You can see the channels cut through the hillsides as the water carves its way through this thick, rich, moist soil filled with clay and nutrients. The water runs crystal clear here, making its way down to the lower lands as it carves a path, dislodging roots and gravel and stones. This is the kind of forest and this is the kind of soil that supports a wide diversity of wildlife and plants and is sufficient to support an old-growth forest. Very important ecosystem, and it's something that we definitely want to hang on to and protect.